All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be on the last messenger of Allah. We're now beginning the fourth session of our series on the soul of Hajj, a spiritual guide to Hajj. In the previous session, we looked at the tawaf, which was the first major act that we were required to do with regards to the elements of Hajj. Prior to that, we looked at the Ihram, the state of Ihram. Following that, whether we're beginning Hajj or we're beginning Umrah, the next is what we do in Mecca. We start off with Mecca. So we looked at Tawaf, which was the most unique and primary act there. The Tawaf, which we said should be done as much as possible whilst we're there, which is not supposed to be done anywhere else but there. The Tawaf, which begins with the black stone and involves walking around the Kaaba in a counterclockwise direction. And what is significant about this direction is that, strangely enough, all movements governed by what they call the natural laws are in that same direction. Whether it is the sun in the galaxy, or the earth around the sun, or the electrons around the nucleus of the atom, or even the water going down the drain. Water, when it goes down the drain, you look and see it goes down in a semicircular fashion. So it is as if our tawaf is putting us in tune with the rest of creation. Our clocks go in a clockwise. This is actually unnatural. We've set it up in an unnatural fashion. But the natural way is what we now know as the counterclockwise way. So, as the creation follows those natural laws, these are the laws which Allah has set for the creation. It has no choice in the matter. We have chosen to join the rest of creation in our movement in accordance with the command of Allah. If Allah had commanded us to go counterclockwise, then of course we do it. But as it happens, we have been commanded to move in that same direction as the rest of all of the other natural phenomena that exist around us, following the same pattern. And this, in general, really is common to Islam, in that we see even our months, for example. Our months are according to the lunar calendar. Now, it might be inconvenient because you can't tell from year to year, exactly when certain things are going to happen. But it follows a natural cycle, the cycle of the moon. And this is how people told time from the most ancient of times. Western civilization came up with this solar calendar, which is artificial, 365 and a quarter days. How do you have a quarter days? You know, but that's what they do. So they have to have a leap year every 2 years, have to add an extra day to make up for this unnatural calculation. That Islam really is the natural religion. It fits into the nature of human beings, and it's consistent with that nature, with the nature of the world in which we live. And that's why the laws, whether they're the laws of inheritance, where the West will say artificially, no, you have a son, you have a daughter, you give them 50-50. But because Islam looks at things from the natural perspective, that in the natural function of the human family, males are responsible for females. It isn't natural that a man and a woman go out, you know, on their own and have to survive, work, and woman looks after kids and works, the man just works. It's not natural for them both to be put out on an equal footing and each have to provide like the other. No, it's not natural, because they're not equal. The woman is having the child. So there's something else she needs. So it is natural that a male be there to help her. And since males are responsible for females, then it is natural that when you divide the inheritance, you have to take into account the different roles. So the man should be given more than the female. So this is a pointer, you could say, an indicator, a reminder of Islam, the natural way. We said after the tawaf, after completing the tawaf, then we, according to Prophet Muhammad's practice, go behind what is known as Maqam Ibrahim and pray there. 2 units of prayer. Maqam Ibrahim is the only legal structure around the Kaaba. In the past, prior to 1925, there used to be other maqams. One was called Maqam Shafi'i, Maqam Hanafi, Maqam Hanbali, and Maqam Maliki. A maqam named after the different imams or schools of Islamic law. But you will not find any reference to them in the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the early generation. Obviously, because Abu Hanifa was born, 100 plus years after the time of the Prophet ﷺ, 200 plus years. And the other great imams were born after him. So, obviously, it couldn't have been in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So what were these maqams that were there? These maqams represented a place. Maqam means a place or time of standing. It was a place where an imam from the madhab would stand, and all of the people who were from his madhab would pray behind him when the time for prayer came. So up until 1925, from the 13th century up until the 20th century, some 700 years, there were 4 different prayers going on around the Kaaba. When the adhan went, Iqamah time came, An iqamah would be made by the Hanafi Imam, Muadhin, and all of the Hanafis who were in the Haram would line up behind him and pray. When he was finished, then the Shafi'i Imam would stand under the Maqam Shafi'i, and all of the Shafi'is who were in the Haram would pray behind him, and so on and so forth. 4 different prayers going on around the Kaaba. These maqamat, were illegitimate. They became a standard and the Muslim world had accepted it. It's something like we look back now, we say, how could they possibly have done that? How could that happen? But it happened. And there's still masjids around today in Damascus and elsewhere where you'll see they have 2 mihrabs, one for Hanafis and one for Shafi'is. They don't use the 2 anymore, but it was indicative of a time when they did. Some places still have prayer times for Shafi'is and prayer times for Hanafis, for Asr. I visited masjids in Singapore, where this masjid was used by both Hanafis and Shafi'is, and they said for Asr, Hanafi prayer time for Asr and Shafi'i prayer time for Asr. Till today. Remnants of that time. But it was a time of misguidance. People had gone astray. This is history, but it's part of a legacy that we have inherited. The only real maqam is maqam Ibrahim. That one was designated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mentioned in the Quran itself. Maqam Ibrahim. And Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after making tawaf, he prayed 2 units of prayer behind it. And when he did so, he used to recite Surah Al-Kafirun in the first rak'ah and Surah Al-Ikhlas in the second. These 2 units of prayer, of course, should be done in reverence, done not as a rushed, quick, let me do it and get out of here as quickly as possible type of salah. Because Prophet Muhammad had said, the worst type of thief is the one who steals from his prayer. And the companions asked, O Messenger of Allah, how does one steal from his prayers? The Prophet responded saying, he does not complete his bowing, nor his prostrations. He doesn't straighten his backbone while bowing and prostrating. This is the salah of a thief, a spiritual thief. Steals from his own salah. So when we stand, we should stand completely, say what has to be said with reflection from our hearts. Bow, we bow properly. And when we stand up from bowing, we stand up again properly. And then we prostrate. Sit up properly and prostrate again. And sit up properly. This is the proper salah. When people did less than that, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ called them over and told them to go back and pray because they hadn't prayed. A prayer less than that is not prayer. Not acceptable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But unfortunately, we can see it all around us. I've seen people making sujood, and they will make 2 sujoods, they'll go down, they'll do 1, 2, and then they sit up. They don't straighten back up properly. They touch their head and they rock out of it and they're back down again. It's like as if they go down and do two. Like the chicken picking at the corn. Or when they come out of ruku', they are sliding down to sujood. They haven't even stopped. There's no stopping point. You come out of ruku', you're bowing. You come out, as soon as you reach the top, you're sliding down. This is not qiyam. You have not made qiyam. You have not stood. You have just slid. So, very important for us, as we go there, this first prescribed prayer in our rites of Hajj and Umrah, that we know what we're doing, that we're praying as the Prophet ﷺ prayed. And he said, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. Pray as you saw me pray. And his prayer didn't have any distinction between that of a woman and a man. We have, till today, some who teach that the woman's prayer is completely different from that of the man. When she stands, she places her hands here, covering her bosom, whereas the man is supposed to place his hands below his navel. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ never said that. He never taught that. Others, when they teach for the woman going into ruku', they say she shouldn't bend as the man bends. You know, so you got a 90-degree. Why? Because if she bends as the man bends, then her posterior will be protruding. And it's awrah. Therefore, she should only bend slightly. Reach her fingers down, it's just towards her knees. If her arms are long enough, maybe she might touch her knees. And when she goes down, of course this is not true at all. Prophet ﷺ never taught any of this. The women bent 90 degrees just like the men. And when they went down into sujood, their arms were off the ground. Prophet ﷺ said, don't put your arms to your elbow on the ground, to lie as the dog lies. But there are those who teach that women are supposed to do exactly that. Put their thighs, their chests on their thighs. A method of prayer which is not based from the instructions of Rasulullah ﷺ at all. So my advice for those husbands who have their wives praying like that, or women who are taught this kind of prayer, please know that this prayer is not the prayer of Rasulullah ﷺ. And if it weren't important to pray as he prayed, then he wouldn't have demonstrated it to his companions. One occasion, it's authentically reported, that he walked up to the top of the mimbar and stood up on the mimbar and began his prayer. And the companions in the masjid, they saw him, they were wondering, what is he doing? Normally he prays on the ground. He only stood on the mimbar for the khutbah, Jum'ah. So why is he standing on top of the mimbar? The mimbar is small, there's no room there to make sujood. So they're watching. He bows, straightens backs up, and then he backs down the stairs. Backward, away from the mimbar, prostrates in front of the mimbar, sits up, prostrates, sits up, walks back up the stairs, and continues his prayer. When he finished the prayer, after backing down again and prostrating, sitting up, prostrating, sitting up, finished the prayer, and he turned, of course, all of the companions in the masjid are watching him. Is this something new, O Messenger of Allah? Are we supposed to do that? He said, I only did that so you would see exactly how I made my prayer. So if this wasn't important, then why would he go to all this extent? Obviously, the way of prayer is in fact important. And if he said, pray as you saw me pray, then that's the way we're supposed to pray. So, when we go to pray behind Maqam Ibrahim, we should do so as the Prophet ﷺ prayed, and he said, take your rites of Hajj from me. خُذُوا عَنِّي مَنَاسِكَكُمْ. So, we take the rites from him and pray as he prayed, and we use the surahs that he used, and we complete the various postures of the prayer. In praying behind Maqam Ibrahim, of course, knowing now that there are 4 million people converging on the haram at certain points, to make tawaf and try to pray behind Maqam Ibrahim could be a major operation. So, it is understood that it is not required that you actually line up behind the maqam itself. To do that, you would be in the middle of the tawaf. People would be knocking you over. You know, you'd have to have your people there fighting these people off. The crowds are coming. You're fighting. Once this person's trying to make their salah, they finish and they get up and start fighting everybody else. No, we don't need to do this. No. We don't need to do this. Because the good that we gain for praying behind Maqam Ibrahim is outweighed by the harm that we have to do it. So whenever the harm outweighs the good, then that something is better not to do. Now this is not saying don't do 2 rak'ah. In general behind Maqam Ibrahim, it just says don't do it, don't try to do it exactly there unless you end up there. The crowd is, light, you have the opportunity, okay, fine. But if the opportunity isn't there, don't try to make it by forcing yourself on others. Because you're only destroying your Hajj. What is involved when the Prophet ﷺ had said, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, La rafatha wa la fusuqa wa la jidala fil hajj, that we should not, be involved in any form of corruption and argumentation, verbal or physical. So it is sufficient for us to find any place in the haram, as close as we can to that vicinity, in the back, the next level, the second floor. However, if we can do it in the general vicinity of behind Maqam Ibrahim, then that's sufficient. Following that, then we should return to the Kaaba if we are able. The crowds are not thick. This is Umrah, for example. It's possible. Go back and kiss the black stone. And then proceed to what used to be the well of Zamzam. There used to be a well there in the basin of the Haram, the Kaaba, and then 100 meters away from it was the well. Eventually they made it underground to increase the tawaf area, and eventually they sealed it up and they piped it out nearer to the sa'i, outside of the main basin altogether. So there's no access to the well of Zamzam anymore. This is out of necessity. So now you will find containers that have Zamzam water and some pipe areas where it's been piped to, where you can get it. You know, beside the sa'i area, this is where you will get it from. Then we are encouraged, as was the practice of the Prophet ﷺ, to drink Zamzam to our fill. And the remainder that is left in our glass, to pour it on our heads. This was the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The pouring on the head is optional. You do it or not. But the drinking, this is what, as long as we're able, we should do it. This is a part of the rites of Umrah and Hajj. Drinking it to your fill, that was the sunnah. But because of the problems of getting to the bathroom, it might not be wise in these times. You fill your bladder, you still have to do sa'i. And the nearest bathrooms, you know, outside of the haram, downstairs, underground, it's a major operation. So, I mean, unless you have time, it may be wise not to fill yourself, drink to your fill. When you're on Umrah and it's easy enough, you can go to the bathroom, no problem. If you need to, fine. But if you're making the Hajj along with 4 million others, it might not be the wisest move. Women don't have as much trouble. They have stronger constitutions in these matters. Men, especially men who get older, you know, they have more difficulty. So just, you know yourself, you know what you're capable of, and be practical. Drinking the Zamzam, the Prophet ﷺ had said, Zamzam, lima shuribala. Ma'u Zamzam, lima shuribala. That the water of Zamzam is for whatever it is drunk. So we are recommended to make dua for what is important for us, important to us, and drink the Zamzam having made that dua, believing that whatever we drink it for, we will get the reward for. Whether it is manifest as the actual thing we asked for or not, know that we do get reward for that intention for which we had drunk it. So this is a general principle concerning dua anyway. We know that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had said, we should make dua being certain that our dua will be answered. This is general. Udu'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijaba. Call on Allah being certain that your dua will be answered. But at the same time, he went on to say that you should know that Allah will not answer the dua of a heart which is negligent and playful. إن الله لا يستجيب دعاء من قلب غافل له. A negligent and playful heart. Negligent heart, one who's making dua and they're looking at their watch as they're making the dua, they're checking their stuff, they're just going through the dua. But they're not conscious of it, they're negligent. One whose heart is playful is one who is playing with his dua. He's not focused also. Just another element of lack of focus. That dua which is not sincere, which is not serious, will not be answered. Simple as that. So therefore, this opportunity which we've been given to make the dua in drinking Zamzam, Zamzam representing Allah's support and help, ease after difficulty, support which we didn't expect because we committed ourselves to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and He came to our help. We wake up one day and realize that working in the bank is haram. Finally, enough people said it, and we finally have become convinced. Working in a riba-based bank is haram. 110%. Then what? If we give up the job, we don't have means to look after ourselves. How can we survive? We have family, we have responsibility, people are depending on us, etc., etc. How can we just give up the job? Well, if we think that it's people who will give us another job, people will do it, then of course this is a big consideration. People, we don't know any people who are going to give us a job, so we feel that we can't get another job. But if we believe that it is Allah who will provide, if we believe that it is Allah who will provide, regardless, even if we can't see an obvious job in the horizon, that Allah is the one who provides, and we give up that job for the sake of Allah, then Allah has promised that He will replace it with something better. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had said, "Man taraka shay'an lillah, awadahu Allahu khayran minhu." Whoever gives up something for the sake of Allah, Allah will replace it with that which is better. That is the promise of Rasulullah ﷺ. Allah has promised us. So if we have that kind of confidence, then Allah will take care of us. Ultimately. It doesn't mean we don't make effort, we don't go out and we strive, etc. But we have that confidence. And that's what Zamzam represents. Zamzam represents that kind of confidence. And that's what it should remind us. That in our own lives, we need to make those kind of sacrifices. For those things that we love, which are displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we hold on to. That we are afraid to let go. Because our trust in Allah is weak. Our belief in Allah is corrupted. We need to correct our faith. We need to renew our faith. That's what labbaik Allahumma labbaik is all about. Renewing our faith. We need to do it. Following that, we have the last of the pillars of what would be Umrah, that of Sa'i. Sa'i literally means to run or to make an effort, any type of effort. But Islamically, it refers to the walking between Safa and Marwa. two mountains that don't look like mountains anymore because of the building of the Kaaba and how things are developed. But there were originally two small mounts, not really mountains, but little hills, really call them hills. And they represent and they are the places where Hagar or Hajar ran to in order to try to find help for herself and her son. They represent the Akhd bil Asbab, they call it in Arabic, means really taking the cause and effect chain, knowing that certain things will produce certain actions will produce certain things, so we make those actions. We go out and try to do it. Making the effort, really. Making the effort. That's what Safa and Marwa represents. Making the effort. Relative to herself, relative to Hagar, that effort did not produce the result that she was seeking. She sought to find a caravan from those 2 points that she could call out to, that they would come and rescue her and her son. That didn't happen. But she was rescued. Allah rescued her with the well of Zamzam. And then the caravan came. What she sought. And that's the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can see this type of support in each and every one of our lives. Now these two mountains, after the time, or hills after the time of Prophet Abraham, time passed, the rites of Hajj were done by his son Ishmael and handed down. In time it became corrupted. We know the rites of Hajj as a whole became so corrupted that people had reached the point where they were making tawaf around the Kaaba stark naked. Men and women. They were saying, Labbaik Allahumma, we hear your call, O Allah, we're coming just like the way you brought us into this world. They were making tawaf naked. When they slaughtered the animals, they would throw the blood on the walls of the Kaaba. Completely distorted. On top of Marwa and Safa, they had put some of their more popular idols. They were placed on the top of these two mounts. So they used to go between the two, between their idols. So when Islam encompassed Mecca, the Meccans surrendered. Muslims took over and purified the Kaaba of the idols, etc. They were removed from around the Kaaba, inside the Kaaba, from Safa and Marwa, broken, thrown away. Still, when the time to perform the rites of Umrah came, people went to do it, they were reluctant to go between Safa and Marwa. Because for them, they saw that these were hills on which the idols of the pagans were kept. So they didn't want to go there so as not to associate themselves with this idolatry. So Allah revealed the verse in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 158, in which Allah said, Inna as-safa wal marwata min sha'airillah faman hajja al-bayta aw i'tamara fala junaha alayhi an yattawafa bihima. Indeed, Safa and Marwa are among the symbols of worship of Allah. So whoever makes Hajj and Umrah, there is no sin to walk between them, to make tawaf around the Kaaba. There is no sin. Otherwise, if one didn't understand what that was about, it seems strange when you read the verse where it says there's no sin to go around them. Why? Because of this history. So, then we follow the way of Hagar between Safa and Marwa, and know, again, remember the hadith found in Sunan Abi Dawood, in which the Prophet ﷺ had said, إِنَّمَا جُعِلَ الطَّوَافُ بِالْبَيْتِ وَبِالصَّفَا وَالْمَرْوَةِ لِإِقَامَةِ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Circling the house, walking between Safa and Marwa, were only established for the remembrance of Allah. That we are in fact conscious of Allah. This is helping us in our taqwa, in our God consciousness. This is the key factor that has to be in place. Without it, again, we're caught up in blind ritual. So whenever we see the mounts, whether it's Safa or Marwa, we repeat that verse from the Quran. Inna Safa wal Marwata min sha'airillah. We repeat it, remembering what it is saying, that it is among the symbols of Allah. It should remind us of Allah. How does it remind us of Allah? It reminds us of Allah by reflecting on Hagar, Hajar. For her, Safa and Marwa are the clear signs of the help of Allah. In tansurullah yansurkum. If you support Allah, His religion, firm in the religion, then Allah will help you. Safa and Marwa are hills which were symbols of the help of Allah. So that's how we remember Allah. It's one of the ways. Of course, when we're between the two, we can make dua just as we're doing when we're making tawaf. Similar du'as we do. Of course, there's no Rabbana Atina Fid Dunya specified, but if you want to use that dua there in sa'i also, you can. You can. Don't teach that it should be done in any special place. And between the two green lights, you have two green lights which represent the floor of the valley. Right, between the two mounts or the two hills, there is a valley between the two. And that's the section in which we are required also to walk quickly, more briskly than we do when we're going around the Kaaba. But let me say this, that if the crowd is so great, you happen to be when it is thick, then just walk. Now some people, thinking that this running thing is like such an obligation, they will be forced. They can't walk. They can't run, right? So they will stand in one spot and they're only, it's nonsense. This is nonsense. Know that that's not required of you. Okay? It's a nice thought, but it's not required. It's what is required of you, if you can, is to run. Running on the spot is not running. We call it running on the spot, but that's not what's required of you. You will find people making tawaf around the Kaaba doing the same thing. You know, up and down on the spot. But it's nonsense. It's ignorance. Okay? So, when we reach the top of the mountain or the hill, then we are taught to make the supplication of the Prophet ﷺ in which he said, La ilaha illallah wallahu akbar, first, La ilaha illallah wallahu akbar, and he used to repeat it 3 times. There is no God but Allah, and He is the greatest. And again, when we say that, we should mean it. It's not just saying La ilaha illallah, Wallahu Akbar, because we say La ilaha illallah all the time, Wallahu Akbar. But when we say it in Hajj, if we want the reward of the Hajj, then we have to try to make everything right. We have to try to say it, reflecting on it. It's part of the rites of the Hajj. As soon as rites fall, we corrupt them, then we lose the Hajj. We lose that great benefit which we were seeking. So La ilaha illallah, when we say it, there's no God worthy of worship but Allah. This is us rejecting our own false gods. Whether it is the God of our own desires, as Allah said in the Quran, have you not seen the one who has taken his desires as his God? Those desires which cause us to take from Islam what pleases us and leave what doesn't. That's when we say La ilaha illallah, that's what we're saying. I'm giving up that God desire. My desire God. My desire God who I follow. And I will, in fact, commit myself to following Allah alone. Because Allahu Akbar, Allah is greater than our God desires or desire gods. Allah is greater. Either we believe it, that in fact He is greater, or we don't. So, continuing with the dua, La ilaha illallah wahdah, wahdahu la sharika lah. We're repeating, there is nothing worthy of worship but Allah, who is without partner. Lahul mulk wa lahul hamd, wa huwa ala kulli shayin qadir. His is the kingdom, this world, all belongs to Him. All praise is due to Him, since everything is His. He is the only one who truly deserves praise. And He's able to do all things. Whatever we sought in this world, if it is good for us, He is able to make it happen. If we want to change ourselves and get back on the path, no matter what our backgrounds are, no matter how corrupt or how misguided we have been in the past, Allah is able to do all things. He can help us to do it. La ilaha illallah wahda. There is nothing worthy of worship but Allah alone. Anjaza wa'da. He has fulfilled His promise. Wa nasara abda. And helped His servant. Wa hazama al-ahzaba wahda. And defeated the clans of disbelievers all by Himself. His promise is true. Whatever He has promised us, He will fulfill it. That is certain. If we believe in Him, then we should in fact believe in His fulfillment of His promises. And that He would help us, as He helped Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his Sahaba and the righteous over the generations. He will help us. And those who oppose us today, the clans, Al-Ahzab, America, the UK, Russia, China, India, the clans have all gathered. But Allah can defeat them all. Because the whole affair belongs to him. Lahul mulk. He has the power over all things. So we repeat this dua 3 times, reflecting on it in our own personal lives, in our community, in our families. And we begin with Safa and we end with Marwa. Safa to Marwa is 1 round, or 1. They have a name for it in Arabic, shout, but in English we don't really have a name for that. So they call it round, but round implies you're going around. When people are playing cricket and they run from one point, one set of wickets to the other, what do they call it? Huh? 1 run. Okay. So we have to do 7 runs. 7 runs, a run is not going and coming. So some people have the mistaken idea because it was told to them as a round. You know, and the term in Arabic, tawaf, is used. So when you do the tawaf, you go from black stone to black stone. So if you start in Safa, they think you go Safa to Marwa and back to Safa. So you have some people who are making 14. They're people. Every Hajj, they came there not knowing what Hajj was, what to do. Somebody tells them that, seems to make sense, so they do it. So you have people killing themselves there. But 1 run is Safa to Marwa. Marwa to Safa is 2. So it means if you started, since it's odd, you started in Safa, you're going to end where? Marwa. So you repeat what you have said on each of the various hills. When you reach the top, when you first start the incline, you reach the top, the various du'as that we mentioned from the Quran, from the Sunnah. And then when we complete in Marwa, then the last rite of Umrah is that of shaving the head. The shaving. And the shaving is the end of our state of Ihram. It's symbolic of leaving the state of Ihram. When we came into the state of Ihram, we said that the most important issue that we were to keep in mind was humility, isn't it? We said number 1 characteristic that Ihram was supposed to develop in us was humility. So when we leave that state, we should leave it in the most humble way possible. We should leave it in the most humble way possible. That confirms our humility. If we leave it proudly, in pride, then it is what? It's showing we really never came in humbly. That our pride was still there, holding us back. So how do we come out humbly? Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had said, may Allah bless those who shave their heads. And the companions asked, and what about the trimmers? He said, may Allah bless those who shave their heads. Another companion asked, but what about the trimmers, Ya Rasulullah? May Allah bless those who shave their heads. Oh Rasulullah, Nothing for the trimmers. And may Allah bless those who trim their heads. This is telling us something. This is telling us something. The way to go is to shave. That's where the greatest blessing lies. That is the affirmation of humility. Those of us who go and we can't shave, we have to ask ourselves, why not? This is not for women. For women, they're supposed to trim. They trim. But the trimming should be a complete trimming, not just take one little piece of hair and trim. You trim all over. Either you get all the hair together and you trim something, an inch off the end, everything, or somebody trims around the whole of your head. That's trim. Not just take a few strands off and trim one, and then you said you've done it. No. Same thing for the man. Trimming means all over the whole head. It doesn't mean just taking some hair here and trimming that little bit off. No. So the men who value their hair, maybe they're going bald already. They say, oh man, if I shave my head, that'll be it. My hair won't even grow back after that. Well, the Prophet ﷺ said, may Allah bless those who shave their heads 3 times. Because that is a higher level of humility. It is symbolic of a higher level of humility. So I advise the brothers, unless you're saying, okay, I'm going to trim because this is my umrah, and then afterwards at the end of my Hajj, when I have to shave now on the Eid day, the 10th, I want to have something for them to shave. Right? Well, maybe if you're coming in at the last moment, your Hajj is, you're making umrah. A few days later, you've got Hajj, so then there's nothing there. But for sure, something's going to grow anyway. If you can shave both times, it's better. It's better. Because something will grow. Even if it's only 3-4 days, something will grow. Better to shave. So inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take us through our rites in a humble way, as symbolized by the ihram and by the shaving of our heads when we leave. For women, by the simplicity in which they clothe themselves, trying to stay in line with the way of the early generation, keep things simple. You're not going on a fashion show. Don't get a special set of wardrobe that you're going to use for your Hajj. Keep things simple. For the men, same thing. The ihram. Don't try to buy the most expensive ihram. Keep it simple. We're here to worship Allah. We're not here for a show.